Welcome back to another DIY Squaredrop build video. This is part 3 in the series, and I'm finishing up the electrical and doing a little bit of work on the floor. Here you can see that I'm just attaching loom to where I connected the side marker light wires into the running light wires. And while I'm doing that, I can kind of go over why this video is so short. So we have had really bad weather here in Northern California. It's been raining constantly. And I can really only work on this outside because our garage is just a true 2-car garage. It's not like oversized or anything. And with my 4x8 workbench and this trailer, which is, I don't know, maybe six and a half feet wide, including the tires, I can only really work on it when it's nice outside. So right now I've decided, just so I don't have to do this later and go underneath the trailer, I'm going to put in a wire that has several feet of length on it and just stick it into the junction box for future needs. I know that I'm going to have another brake light / running light on the back side of the camper attached to the actual galley door. So I figure I might as well run this cable now and not have to really worry about it later, kind of future-proof it for when I need that eventually. Just zip tying it here for so the floor can go on and not really snag on anything, and then also so this cable doesn't like fall down and drag underneath the trailer when I eventually take it on some test drives. I will remove that eventually and tie it up properly, but for now that will do. I'm also fixing the 7-pin connector there. The cable is a little too long, so I was kind of wrapping it around. So this is actually before I did all that electrical, but I'm getting this underside plywood over on top of the camper just so I can see if I positioned everything correctly, if my measurements are right. And it actually wasn't. One side was slightly angled, so off camera I went and sanded one side completely, drew a straight line down one end and sanded off the edge so that it had a total of one half of an inch. So there's a quarter on each side so that the walls can go on top of the frame, sitting flush with the base there. So here I am cutting my 1x6s to length. I am lining it up on the back end to be flush and clamping it down and then making a mark there on the end where I need to cut it. And here is my little miter saw station on my workbench. And I want to get it just right because you don't want to go too short. So that one turned out pretty perfectly. And so I clamped it down just to double check. Everything looked good. And that I was actually checking the foam board that I have there on top to make sure that it was the same height as the 1x6. It is, if I remember correctly, it's a little shallow. So I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do there because I really want a nice compressed feel underneath. So we'll see once everything is in if it looks like it needs a little more foam. If so, I'll have to go get 1-inch ones and cut those down because these are 3/4 inch 4x8 boards. So both of the sides are done now, and now I'm doing the exact same thing but with the cross members. So on these I'm really sneaking up on the cut because I really want to make sure that everything is proper length so that I can use pocket holes, so that when I do the pocket holes, it's not trying to move everything and there's no gap. I really want to make sure it's sturdy since I'm using 1/2-inch ply at the bottom and then only 1/4-inch ply as the floor. So here I am double checking, sneaking up on the cut, and that one looks good. So I moved on to the next one and got that cut properly. So as I said, I didn't get a whole lot done since my last video because of the weather, and I'm actually about to go to my bachelor party for the wedding. So I will be a few days I will likely not have a video next week, but when I get back from that, I'm going to go hard on this to try and get as much done as possible. With all the delays, there's no way I'll get this done by the wedding, but you know, it is what it is. So here I'm taking those boards that I cut, I took the foam off, and I'm about to start gluing it. So I'm just checking here once again, and I'm realizing that while the ends are correct, both of these boards are slightly bowed. And so it's a little bit wider on those bows. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that each end is flush and then both of the bows are out, and I will go through with my flush trim router bit and just trim off the excess in the middle so that the walls can go flush onto there as well. I was very confused at first until I started feeling underneath and realizing, oh, they're just bowed out a little bit. So next I'm going to put the glue on there and then drill my holes. And I had to use a Forstner bit because the screws I have are like panhead screws. And I know they're not the correct screw to use here, but it's what I had on hand. And I wanted to get this done before I left. So I'm going in with the drill and then the Forstner bit and then screwing everything in. Afterwards, I put on a bunch of clamps and also put some heavy stuff on the other side of the 1x6 to make sure that it's as flat as it can be. And that'll be pretty much it. The one other thing I do in this video at the end is I go to try and put my new jack stands on the back, and I'm realizing that I really need to use I'm going to weld them on. And that is because the screws on them would just go through the steel beam on one side, and I can't really fasten it properly on the upside. And so I'm just going to use the welder and I'm going to weld them on. Here you can see I'm kind of deciding where I want to put them, and I eventually decide right behind the light so they can fold forward. So yeah, I'll be welding those. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you when I get back.